Recording. There we go. All right. So I am talking today to Carol White, and Carol White is the principal at CB White, and is going to be talking a little bit about her career background and experience. So, Carol, why don't you start out by talking a little bit about CB White? What do you focus on there, and how does marketing research help inform that?
Well, thanks. Thanks for inviting me. Yes, I am Carol White. I founded CB White, which is a marketing research and strategy firm. I founded it over 20 years ago. I came to this because I had learned a lot about how to conduct marketing research in the corporate sector and seen that impact strategy. Most of my work had been with service organizations, and I felt that everything I was doing made sense and would have application in the nonprofit sector. And that's where my passion was. I'm going to do a little tangent here. That said, I do caution people who have a business background or people in the business world from thinking that they can just walk over to nonprofits and take their existing tools and just slam them in there. I think it's really important to invest in learning the sector and its needs through all kinds of informational interviewing. And I think I'm always learning. That's actually one of the best things about being a consultant. So the focus of the firm, to get back to your question, we consider the questions and decisions that any organization is trying to make, so that our clients are trying to make. And we work very much in partnership with them to explore those questions. What are you trying to decide? What's keeping you up at night? What are you facing? And then I think about those questions and work with them and say, all right, so could information from the outside world help you make a better decision? Sometimes the answer is no. Better accounting system. I have nothing to do with that one. But should we offer this kind of a program? Does our target market need it? Who is our target market? Well, we all know those to be kinds of questions that they might try to answer from their internal wisdom and experience, but they might also inform that with a lot of external information that I can bring in and with an objective look. So we work with them to see what questions can be addressed with marketing research. We do it. That might be surveys, focus groups, interviews. We design it, we conduct it, we synthesize it, and we bring it back to them. And then we work in partnership again to say, here's what we heard. Let's bring in what you know. And now let's inform the recommendations that we jointly create and the plans that you will use to take this forward. And I really have tried hard to work with them to help make sure that things move from a research report to some plans and actions they'll be able to take. So a couple of examples of what that can mean. What programs do people need? What price can they charge for products and services? Because they're not always free. Who is the target market? How can we truly understand that market and get empathy for it? What options does the market have? And how is the client unique and differentiated? And how does all that possibly translate into a communication platform and some messaging strategies? I'm happy to give more examples if you want, but that's a long answer.
Well, that's great. So tell me a little bit more about what prepared you for doing this kind of work. What in your background, whether it be professional experiences or education, led up to this?
I think it's a number of things kind of converge probably to create this. To be completely truthful, my MBA did give me a wide array of skills. Do I think someone has to get an MBA to do what I do? No, but I did have one. And I think the reason the MBA has ended up being so useful to me in working with the nonprofit organizations is while I may come to them to address marketing research and marketing questions, I am often at a table where it's exceptionally useful that I can hold my own and think about the operational impacts, the financial impacts, and the array of pieces of the organization that may be affected by any decision. So the MBA for me was a way that I learned all those things and can try to integrate them. I think my volunteer work was really important. It's how I got inside of nonprofits and got a look at them. I think that my marketing research hat was on when I was inside of nonprofits. So I would be doing volunteer work and thinking about, wow, if I could do a survey or a focus group on this, I'd really do a better job at recruiting the additional volunteers, I'm trying to get into this breast cancer advocacy work. So I could better see the kinds of decisions they were trying to make. So I think the volunteer work helped. And then I think the other key source was informational interviews, where I was so incredibly lucky that people were generous with their time when I was just getting this thing off the ground, and not even off the ground, really just trying to decide about starting it and talking to people who were in the sector, because people in the nonprofit sector are probably not sitting there with a market research department thinking, I need to hire somebody to do a survey. So I really needed people who could talk to me just about decisions they were facing, and so that I could start to translate that and see if it fit. I went in with a hypothesis that it might fit, but needed to be open to being wrong about that or learning how to shape it.
So you've chosen a career path really in consulting. And consulting is one of the many ways that people get involved with the nonprofit sector. Some people aspire to management roles. Some people are aspire to program roles. Consulting is one particular path, though. And I'm curious about, what do you love about the role as a consultant? And what things do you find most challenging about it?
So I am definitely a born consultant, and not everyone is. I think I love consulting probably for the most obvious reason, which is I love the variety. In any one day, I can be working on a project on cancer in the morning, for the arts in the afternoon, and on the environment in the evening. So I'm really not pigeonholed, because the skill set I bring is a skill set. And I always say that the client is actually the content expert. I just know how to combine what I know how to do with their content expertise. So I am learning all the time about different ways that organizations address societal needs. And that's the fascination. So I think like I said, I think I'm a born consultant, because I like to, learn a new problem, figure out how I can help solve it. And I'm okay with leaving those recommendations and moving on to the next one. That's the part that doesn't fit everyone. And that's very much just, who are you? I'm okay with not being the implementer. And that is, something that drives other people crazy, but it works really well for me. What else do I love about it? I love having a small practice. I think this isn't true of all consultancies. In a small practice consultancy, I get to both find the work and conduct it. So something I think people need to watch for in bigger organizations is which piece of it you're going to get to do. But, that's something I like about being in someplace smaller. I think the challenging parts, probably the most challenging part in any project-based consultancy, which is what mine is. I sell a project, to do a project, and the project ends. There is no certainty of income. There is no paycheck. Nobody really has certainty. Anybody can get laid off anytime, but I don't have a paycheck. And when people say, wow, you're really working hard, or how do you actually manage to get any work done at home, back when only some people worked at home? If I'm not working, I'm not earning. So that's an uncertainty thing that is not for everyone. And it's a challenge. It eases over time, but it's a challenge.
So imagine for a moment that you have piqued a student's interest in the class. They're hearing what you're saying about variety and about the type of work that you do, and they're interested. What advice would you give them?
I think the first thing that becomes really important is if a piece of the interest is nonprofit, right? There's elements to this. So one piece of this is, wow, I'm really intrigued by this working with nonprofit thing. I would encourage people to get to know nonprofits, talk to people in them, and be the most active listener you can be, and try to set aside the preconceived notions you might have. The question I get all the time is, wait, nonprofits will pay you for your consulting work? Don't you have to give it away? And the answer is no. My soapbox moment for that is that if we value the work that is done in the nonprofit sector, which we do, or we wouldn't be here together, we need to, in our culture, have the exchange of value that goes with that. We should not be underpaid in the sector. We should not undercharge in the sector. And we should honor ourselves and the sector by being willing to have that be an exchange of value in the way our culture does it, which is monetarily. So I am not afraid to charge for my services, and it's not been a roadblock. So I think that really active listening, what do they face? What do they understand? What don't they understand? And what are they facing? And what have you learned with the benefit of this degree that you're getting? What have you learned that you do have to offer? And how might you shape it to meet their needs? So much of what you're learning won't always be in a class that's got nonprofit in its title. When I earned my MBA, nonprofit wasn't in the title of my classes. So the next thing I think is, how do I shape what I've learned to fit what I'm hearing as a need? So there's active listening, there's shaping, and bringing that together. At the most tactical levels, I think it's active listening, working that network, asking people, being unafraid to ask people for 15 minutes of their time. Beware asking people for an hour of their time. That's really hard, but asking people for short bits of their time to learn from them. And think of all your questions and ask them boldly. I think also for undergrads trying to get started, I suppose looking for those larger firms that might be doing communications work in the sector and seeing what their entry-level positions may look like is a great path to follow. And it might also be, I think especially now, looking for communications firms. Well, so going at this one or two ways, looking for communications firms who have not focused in nonprofit, but who might have a small nonprofit portfolio, or who may be open to building one. I think that's where there may be opportunity. And then on the other side of it, there may be nonprofit consultancies that haven't brought in much communication work. So I think that, again, at the entry level, I started a consultancy with a number of years of experience already. That's probably not the right thing. You need to join something existing. So I think they're trying to find either the perfect, the magic nonprofit consultancy, or nonprofit communications consultancy, or the communications consultancy that would add a little nonprofit, or the nonprofit one that would add some communication.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time today. This has been fascinating, and I'm sure that students will have questions and will be finding you on LinkedIn to see what you're up to.
Excellent. Well, I really enjoyed talking with you, and I'm excited to know that there are students who are taking classes in nonprofit communications. It's a very exciting sector to work with. The people are passionate and smart and can do so much with so little. Their resources are more limited, and what they do with them is inspiring every day.
Wonderful.